Session 3, Darkness Rising. The party, wearied and worn out from their encounters within Castle Light, eventually fall into an uneasy slumber. But it is not long before Mardigan awakes, to the sound of footsteps beneath him. He quietly raises his head and peers over the balcony of the minstrel's platform and sees the figure of a small-framed woman making her way behind the bar counter. She holds in her hands a vial that seems to glimmer like fire, and uncorking it, pours it behind the countertop. It is at that moment that Mardigan smells black smoke and feels the heat coming from underneath the minstrel's stand. He begins to gather his things quietly, knowing he must leave quickly, just in time to see the woman uncork one more vial and throw it against the very door behind which the rooms of the inn are kept, and 4 of his brand new companions. The smoke and flames begin to get to him, and he is unable to get a good look at the woman's face as she exits the building. Flames now rising higher than what he can handle, he darts behind the bar into the kitchen, attempting to grab anything by which to douse the flames and save as many as he can. He grabs a bucket of water and heads for the door to the rest of the rooms. Throwing the water against the door, he is able to reach the handle, and though it sears his palm just slightly, he is able to open the door and kick it the rest of the way. It is at this moment that the smell of smoke begins to permeate the nostrils of the sleeping party, each of them jumping too. They grab what little they travel with and head into the hallway, ready to aid any who would need it. Pounding on doors and aiding the other civilians out, they reach the end of the hallway, where the flames have not yet stretched to, only to realize the way has been shut. Mardigan leaps out of the window and runs around the side of the building as quickly as his legs can carry him. Rek, looking for a more direct way out, begins to slam his shoulder and eventually his weapon into the door. Just about the time that Rek has made his way through, Mardigan notices a small chair propped in such a way to prevent the door from opening. He grabs it and pulls it away as hard as he can, right at the same time that Rek is making his final swing. As they do, everyone is able to pour out of the inn and out into safety. Unsure of what the head count could be, the group looks for the friendly barkeep, Danica, who lives at and maintains the peeled lover in Matthias's stead. Concerned, as none of them have eyes on her, they begin to run around the building, seeking other exits she might have left through. After reaching the back of the building, they notice the kitchen door slightly ajar, and a hand laying just outside of it. Attached to the unconscious body, the group pulls her just in time from the blazing ruins that the peeled lover has become, and noting a lack of rise and fall in her chest, begin to try and breathe life back into her. Kethid, eventually restoring Danica, is so concerned and caught up in the moment that he does not recognize that things are not as they seem with Danica's form. Nor does the rest of the group, until, as she begins to stir, turning over and coughing violently, the illusion magic that had hid her true form comes to an end, its time running out. Instead of the human woman in her younger 30s, they see instead a feline humanoid form, with gray fur and black stripes, pointed ears, and hair stretching out ornately from them, amber eyes, in feline form, narrow slits, and claws protruding from her very paws. She looks at them briefly, catching her breath, mutters a few words, and her human form resumes. No time. Go to the lighthouse. There's an attack. She sputters quickly, attempting to get all the information to them. Certainly taken aback and curious as to whether her information is correct, each of them turn to see the lighthouse, the entire reason for this town and the only safeguard between the ships and vessels that travel their way through the dangerous bays. Snuffed out in a moment. Darkness permeates the evening and the thunderstorm seems to swell. It is at that moment that another individual, a human female in blue robes, akin to those worn by Fenwick, makes her way now around the corner. This is Aveline Beaumont, the woman that Fenwick had recognized only barely several hours prior, an old classmate and friend of his. "What has happened to the lighthouse?" she says hurriedly. "It's under attack," Mardigan says. "Then we have no time to lose." And the 6 of them depart quickly, rushing through the town and to the long rope bridge connecting the cliffside village to the Sea Spire lighthouse. They rush across, and Aveline, hastening herself with magical aids, dashes up beyond the party's ability to keep pace with her. Concerned at what this could mean, the party climbs the winding stair all the way up to the base of the lighthouse, where they see Aveline, who has fallen to her knees, release one final spell of flame, which crashes into a shadowy figure, which seems to turn and dissipate before them. Faint and out of breath, she turns to them. "I should not have run so far ahead. Please, I had horses inside. I think they're in trouble." To which the group rushes in immediately. As they enter the base of the lighthouse, they notice the room is still, a body lying face down on the floor. "We have to go, quickly," Mardigan says, and he, Cathod, and Rek begin to make their way up the stairs. "We'll be up in just a second," Fenwick says, as he and Eros begin to look around, attempting to find any other bodies. Eros makes his way to the man lying on the floor, and notices his cold, unmoving body. He takes pity on him and places his hand on the body. It is just then that the shadow of the corpse begins to stand up straight. Eros, in terror, recoils slightly, and the shadow lunges for him. He and Fenwick are forced to do battle against it, as this shadow seems to steal the very life and strength essence of a creature that it touches. Calling out for help, Fenwick and Eros alert the other three who have gone up the stairs. Cathod, hearing their screams, says, "Wait, they need our help," and turns around to see another shadow stepping out from behind him, blocking his escape down the stairs. Mardigan also stops as a third shadow steps in front of him, barring his path forward. He, Rek, and Cathod also begin to do battle against these creatures. Cathod, eventually discovering that light seems to destroy them, far easier than the weapons that fail to do much damage at all, is able to dispatch the creatures quickly. And the five are reunited once again, continuing now to make their way to the top of the lighthouse. Upon arriving, they step into the precipice and notice a dark sphere hovering over where the normal light source would be, guiding sailors to safety and preventing them from dashing themselves upon the rocks of the treacherous cliffs of Martine. Curious, they then see a black-robed, hooded figure standing on the edge of the lighthouse, his hand outstretched towards the center of the lighthouse, where the darkness is emanating from. "You're too late," he mutters, and with that falls backwards off of the top of the lighthouse, plummeting towards the sea below him. The group rushing over to see what happens to the man lose him in the shadows. But just then, a peal of lightning and a rumble of thunder illuminate a sea vessel, its course dead set for the Sea Spire Tower. The light, all of a sudden, reignites behind them as the darkness disappears. All too late, watching hopelessly, the ship some 800 feet below our heroes, the bow crashing into the Sea Spire rock. An explosion consumes the front end of the boat and launches the stern backwards into the ocean depths around it. They hear muffled cries of men crying out for help in the treacherous waters below, and turn to make their way down the lighthouse tower in hopes of helping, but Cathod notices as some of them are pulled violently below the depths. Horrified, they make their way to the base of the tower and back out into the storm, where they are confronted by a man wearing armor and 7 other guards with him, along with the blue-robed woman, Aveline. They convey the dire situation in the depths below, and the man states that there are already National Guard down below trying to help the survivors, but is curious as to the group before him, wondering their involvement and potential collusion with this plot. The group then proceeds to share what they had witnessed with both he, the captain of the guard, and Aveline before him. Aveline turns and begins to make her way back down towards the cliffside village, whereas the group is led now by the remaining guards, who are still suspicious and curious as to the validity of the story the group has shared with them. While walking, Fenwick hears a familiar voice inside of his head. "Are you okay? Or would you like me to intervene?" The voice of Aveline comes through. Not sure how or at what volume he should respond, eventually they make their way down the side of the cliff and begin to cross the rope bridge, when all of a sudden, shouts of, "Captain! We found a survivor!" And Aveline approaches towards the captain of the guard. Stating her rank within the government and her desire to oversee this investigation, she informs the captain of the guard. "These individuals shall be my bodyguard. You are to release them into my service as I am deputizing them. Please, if you have any questions or qualms about this, you may contact my office. Until then, I'm in charge here. Are we understood?" Yes, milady," the captain says, and turns over our party into the care of Aveline Beaumont. They make their way down the lift to discover the fate of this survivor, and hopefully hear his story. Upon getting there, they notice 2 guards attending to the individual. The one guard turns and says, "We can't get a word out of him. He's just babbling. Never heard anything like it before." To which the group begins to attempt conversation with him. However, all they receive is the same nonsensical babble the guards informed them of. In a last-ditch effort to try and have the man understand her, Aveline casts some magic by which she is able to communicate with the man, but it seems as though the language he speaks is one none of them can understand. They note his tattered rags and unshaven appearance. It seems as though the man has not had proper access to any kind of grooming or means to take care of his physical body, and there are marks around his wrists, matching what one would expect from being clamped in irons. The group, while conversing and trying to figure out whatever it is that this man might have been through, does not notice the approaching threat, except for Fenwick, who had just finished casting a spell that allows him to note magical effects, similar to what he had done in the middle of Castle Light. He notices, all too late, a fast-approaching ping of magic coming from behind them, from beneath the water's surface. chaos as the black-robed man bursts from the water, grabs the individual, and disappears into a flash of arcane energy, taking the man with him. The group, unsure of how to react or who might be next, dashes back towards the lift, incapable of fully understanding or even combating magic of such high power. Aveline produces a charm effect on the guards, forcing them not to share what they have seen with the captain until she has fully concluded her investigation. She also asks for certain documents and records to be brought to her so that she may discover which ship was bound around the Cape. The Peeled Lover, now almost fully burned down, will no longer be a place for them to stay for the night. Still in the care of Aveline, they make their way to a farmer's house, who has his upper rooms purchased by Aveline for an evening stay. It is there that the party shares in full detail what had happened to them in the lighthouse, and Aveline takes notes. After getting through each of their stories, the group, now well exhausted as the storm is now passing and the waking hours are but few before them, eventually all decide to head to bed. Fenwick, before going to bed, asks Aveline for a few moments just to try and catch up. Too exhausted to converse, she promises that the two of them will have an opportunity the following morning, and each of them fall into fast slumber. Eventually the group awakes to a farmer's breakfast and a furiously note-scribbling Aveline at the farmer's table. They eat and pack their things while Aveline goes through some of the documentation left before her, provided by the guards, and she discovers that the ship itself belongs to L'Infini, or Les Marchands de l'Infini, the Merchants of Infinity, one of the most powerful merchants guilds in all of Karis, a household name, and potentially the end of her investigation, as any jurisdiction she has ends at the private sector. Unbelievable, she says. There's nothing I can do here. My hands are tied. And the group shares her disdain. They begin to try and piece the puzzle together, and are curious as to why they might find someone in potential slavery aboard a L'Infini vessel. Aveline expresses her discomfort and how she must avoid this conversation, packing up and getting ready to leave, scribbles a note to them saying, "I do not doubt you, but you must be careful." After this, the group breaks and makes their way back to the center of town, knowing they must leave to continue their adventure before them. Fenwick and Kethid, both having reasons to travel to the city of Kersburg, or the City of Hearts, have decided to travel together. Eros and Rek, having nothing better to do, decide they enjoy the company of this new group and will tag along. Mardigan, also understanding the need for friends in this time, decides to travel with them too. They stock up on goods at the general store, and Fenwick has his conversation with Aveline. "So Fenwick, how is Adelie?" she asks him. Fenwick's face falls. "I lost her around a decade ago." "Oh, I'm so sorry," she responds. "If I had known, of course I never would have brought it up." "No, it's okay. I know you didn't mean anything by it," he responds. "She died in child labor, but our son survived." "Oh, that is good to hear. Again, I'm so sorry. Please, accept my apologies." The two of them continue to catch up, and Fenwick eventually asks her the nature of her early departure from the academy, Brulnorth's, where he had graduated, Aveline only a year behind them, but suddenly disappearing in her 5th year of study. She informs him that some of her family were sick and she needed to depart quickly, and eventually fell in with a mentor who finished her studies and initiated her into her position with the arcane arts, which eventually led to her getting a position within the government in the Department of Internal Revenue. She has since been working diligently and traveling the area, doing taxes and meeting many individuals, and growing her talents for the arcane arts. Fenwick asks her one last thing, whether she kept up with anyone from Brulnorth's, in particular, one professor by the name of Stratmore. "Stratmore," she says. "I remember him. He was a divination professor, no?" "Very same." "No, but if you're curious of how to find him and reconnect with him, I could pull a favor and have some documentation, find out where he is living based on his tax returns." "Would you do that?" "That'd be wonderful," Fenwick says. "Sure. I'll wait for my message. I will do it as soon as I'm able, but I will likely have quite a bit of work here, especially documenting what has happened. But Fenwick, it has been my genuine pleasure. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon." And she turns and departs from him. Meanwhile, Mardigan in town makes his way towards the ruined rubble of the Peeled Lover and finds Danica speaking to a very bothered Matthias. "I'm sorry," she says, "but I cannot stay here and rebuild with you. I almost died last night and I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. I'm sorry, Matthias. I have to go." Matthias, frustrated at this, turns and storms back towards his castle, or stone manor, as it were, and Danica catches Mardigan's eye. Mardigan, feigning familiarity, embraces her and begins to sob with some enthusiasm, heartbroken at the loss of the Peeled Lover. They then walk together and turn around a corner, at which point Mardigan draws a dagger and places it to her throat. only to feel claws underneath his jacket, right over where his kidneys would lie. "Put yours away, and I'll put mine away," he hears a very different voice say. "Fair enough," he agrees, and sheathes his dagger. The illusory effect around Danica fades, and reveals once more the feline female. "So, you discovered my secret. I do not think this would have happened had it not been for last night's event, but thank you." "You owe me one," Mardigan says. She scoffs. "I guess I'll give you my name then. I am Dawn. Dawn of the Eternal Sun, or something like that. I work for the government of Garrus. I had been following a threat here for some time," she shares with him. "It is curious you arrive here when you did, and ow. So, I will continue my search, my investigation. And since you are privy to certain things, I will let you know when I need help." "What are you, if I may ask?" Mardigan says. "Me? I'm a tabaxi, a catfolk. Pleased to make your acquaintance, Mardigan," she says. And reassuming once more her human illusion, she turns and departs, looking back only once to wink and walk away. The rest of the party, reconvening, decides they will take the northern trail all the way around the coast to the town of Aviro, and then cut due south for Kurzburg. And thus we reach the end of Session 3.
Hey everybody, real quick, Spartan Bodhi here. Thank you so much for jumping in on this week's recap. Happy Tuesday. This one was a ton of fun, and for a lot of different reasons. I think as far as DM tips, there's going to be an entire video where I come back to this particular session recap and talk about the different things that really went well, and the things that I would recommend for you to do as a DM in terms of engaging your party, setting up a challenging sequence, and giving your challenge excellent verbs by which to really get your characters engaged. All of these were the key to the success of this session, and we had a lot of fun. We learned quite a few things about Fenwick and his backstory, and more of that will come in a future video. I want to keep this short and just say thank you again for watching, and as of today, the Discord server is ready, so please come on by the Agora, which is what I've called the server, and if you're curious as to what that is, click the link in the blah blah below, read the welcome, agree to the rules, there's a little button you'll have to click, just look for it, and you will unlock the rest of the server as a fully fledged citizen of the Agora. Under my channel, you'll see a sub-channel titled FAQ, or Frequently Asked Questions, in which I answer the significance of my username online, as well as the whole reason for naming my server the Agora. I'm so excited to begin conversing with all of you and working together to build this community into really just something hopefully unique and wonderful on the internet. So thank you so much, enjoy your Tuesday, and remember, adventure's calling. Are you listening?